In the book, I talk about a summary table in terms of the
Mhm.
different candidates that people have put up
Yes.
previously as candidates that can qualify for Mount Sinai. For example, there's Jabal Musa,
Yes,
there's
Jabal
Jabal
Mufti.
Alwas,
Mm-hmm.
there's Hakakom, which there's Jabal Mara,
Mm-hmm.
etc. There's the one in Ethiopia,
Yes.
etc.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, I go back to the six basic criterias that I said. Why do we need to look at just these six are just the top ones? Like we used to do
Yes.
something called the elimination method,
Yeah.
where you'd say, if it doesn't qualify for this, I'm not gonna even bother with the rest,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if any of these locations has a Horeb mountain, or a rock place where there's water features, then
Mm-hmm.
it can qualify.
It cannot.
If it has the
Okay.
sinkholes are the size of like football fields.
What if one of history's greatest forgotten stories has been hidden in plain sight? What if the so-called lost tribes of the Bible have been among us all along? Join a global conversation exploring the historical, cultural, linguistic, scientific, and biblical evidence that the Abantu, the people scattered throughout Africa, the Americas, and the nations, are the authentic descendants of the ancient biblical Israelites. Our identity is not founded on religion, but on lineage, ancestral continuity, culture, language, and nationhood. Our mission is truth, restoration, reconciliation, and spiritual awakening according to the Scriptures. Bring your knowledge, bring your research, bring your scholarship, join the conversation, subscribe to Bantu Biblical Israelites. The awakening has begun.
Greetings, Siemi, Salama, Mbote, Betwabu, Saubona, Molweni. So, salama to all of you, brothers and sisters. Greetings. I'm by the name Yahunde Batakane, and I'm here today with a brother, an author, Brother Mutavi, Nicholas Mutavi, who is a researcher, an author, an entrepreneur, and a student of biblical history from Kenya. So, Brother Mutavi actually was raised in Kenya, and he lives in Nairobi at the moment with his family. Nicholas is trained as a supply chain specialist and ran businesses in concrete and precast products, right? He's also a man of faith who believes that identity, inheritance, and the kingdom of the Most High are deeply connected, right? His research has led him to explore biblical geography, African history, and the possibility that some of the Bible's most significant events took place in East Africa. He is the author of the book Sinai in Africa, a book that presents evidence for locating Mount Sinai, the Exodus route, and other biblical landmarks within Africa. Nicholas, welcome to Bantu Biblical Israelites. We are honored to have you with us today, and so just looking forward to hear what you have to share. All the information you people. We're gonna feed it. It's gonna be a lot of feeding, a lot of growth, a lot of learning and learning. So I pray that everybody or audiences who is watching that you brace yourself and let's dive into this. All right. So, Brother Nicholas, can you quickly just yeah, so you're from Kenya. Can you tell us anything about you, just beyond what I shared, just anything that you like to share about yourself and about what's going on in Kenya?
Uh, First of all, I want to just thank God for this opportunity and you giving me the opportunity to be able to come to your platform and share my insights and be able to discuss this so that we can raise uh, just the level of awareness to our people. And yeah, I mean, Kenya, Asante Sana, that's what we say, Asante Sana.
Mm.
For those who've never been to Kenya, oh, once you come here, you might not want to go back. That's the thing.
I agree.
Kenya, lovely weather, lovely people, hardworking people, very creative people. And I grew up in the city as well as out of town. So I got a mix of the two. I was fortunate enough to see my great grandparents and, growing up culturally, I speaking the language from our culture and
Mhm.
basically growing up in a big family. So we come from a family of like 8 kids. So you know how it is.
Yep.
So you kind of like transition and you move from different places. We've lived all over the place in
Mhm.
the country. So I've
Wow.
had a mix of different cultures,
So how
especially
many,
Bantu cultures.
wow. So how many languages do you speak?
I currently speak around 4 languages.
Wow. Which ones are
Yeah.
those? Can you?
I speak Kamba, I speak Kiswahili, I speak English, and then I can speak a little bit of Kikuyu
Wow.
and foreign languages as well. I
Okay.
speak
Perfect.
one or two foreign languages.
Perfect. That's wonderful. That's a lot of languages. Africans, and I like that
Yeah.
you say that you come from a big family. I think, and so
Yeah.
how was that? How was life being like? Just living, coming from a big family. And of course, I also when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about from the biblical point of view. Like in the Bible,
Yeah.
we see we see Yakuba, right, or Jacob having
Yeah.
all these 12 sons and all,
Yes.
and just could be, man, it's a lot of stuff going on. Can you share with us
You know what's
what your life has been?
you
Hmm.
know what's interesting is well, I read the culture in the Bible and it's literally Bantu culture,
Mm,
It's literally Bantu culture. There are things we still do which are
right,
in the same like in the Bible.
right.
And of course, growing up, I think I'm fortunate having grown up that time because mother tongue came as a prerequisite.
Mm,
Now it's not as because of all these
yeah,
intermarriages and everything, the kids don't know much about the mother tongue as we used to do. And then growing up, we used to go, we all okay, let me say we have village people or
mhm,
people from the village. So
right.
they are the ones who correct you and keep you in shape, I guess, or in line. So that has a mix, kind of like blend when
Hmm.
you go to the village side and then you come back to the city. You kind of grow up you fusing those two systems of the
That's
urban side and the countryside.
that's wonderful.
That has a very good outlook when you start reading now the Bible in terms of
Mm,
seeing the culture in
mm,
itself, because
yeah.
you can see it because you've experienced
Because
it.
you've experienced it. That's very wonderful that you say
Yeah,
that. So, like, because the Bible is if we say the Bible is the Bantu culture is biblical, and then but then when you don't have them side by side, you kind of think that one doesn't relate to the other. But then when you've lived the culture, and then you're exposed to the Bible, not from the I guess the church
yes,
standing, but from independent reading, like really searching, seeking to
yes,
know the truth, then you realize, oh wow, this is one and the same, so within that
yes,
same context, what did
yes.
your spiritual journey look at? What would you describe since me being awakened to your identity as knowing your tribe, your
Mhm.
band, your identity being the Israelites of the Bible? What has your journey been like, and what led you to this personal awakening?
I think, it started just before COVID. We have the way you have churches and then you have your parents,
Hmm.
and my mom at the time was traveling for the church pilgrimage things. So
Hmm.
they kind of do these things where they travel to the Holy Land,
Right.
and she was just traveling, and we are involved in that,
Hmm.
including my siblings. So it has been like one of the things that she has always wanted to do. And my parent is above 70 now. She's almost 75. And my mom was traveling at the time. And so, you're excited. And then when she comes back,
Hmm.
she went like, you know, it's so funny. I remember her statement was like, that's what was so weird was they have to buy soil and it's so small. You know, those things
Mm,
that I don't know, in your
mm,
mind, it kind of clicks. I picture it the way you have a clock mechanism, and then all
mm.
the guys who, like you see in movies and they're trying to break into a safe and then they just click.
Right,
It
right,
just like
right, right.
downs on
Makes
you,
sense.
and then once it just comes like filters down, you can't unsee the
Y-
thought.
Yeah.
So from there, I said, "Oh, the math doesn't math for me."
Mm,
So I started just looking out for information. I remember back then we used to have a guy called Truth Unveiled,
mm-hmm,
777 Truth Unveiled 777. I
mm,
remember watching his videos and I would
mm.
like relate. So that's how I just began my journey. And basically, of course, the Most High Tanzania and God will definitely lead you to a certain, nudge you
Yes,
to a
yes,
certain way of things.
yeah.
So
Mm-hmm,
with
mm-hmm.
time, He reveals a lot more as you seek.
I see.
So
That's
come
very good. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
2025, 2025, I
mm-hmm.
just stuck in traffic and just happened to go on TikTok. And I saw someone speak about something, and I said, I think I can contribute more to what these people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on TikTok and I did not take, I think my first like 5 videos didn't even have audio. So I learned the curve, learned very fast. You know, Kenyans don't spare you. They'll make you learn very fast. You
I
know,
know, I
can
know.
you go learn about TikTok and can you come back here and you know,
Right.
so and then over time now people ask me to put the information I have in a book, so which
Mm.
led me to write the book.
That's
After that,
awesome.
I've written another book as well, two or so more after that.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you so much for sharing that part. Definitely, it's a personal experience, and that leads me to this question that
Mm.
I've been meaning to ask, because many people speaks
Yes.
of the awakening, right? We all talk
Yeah.
about awakening. Actually, different people mean different things when they talk about the awakening. There are people awakening to the Kemetic identity, are people awakening to like just realizing that Black people are indigenous or whatever, or realizing that Black people are the first people. And then there are people who are awakening to
Yes.
the realization that Jesus was not white. There are people who are awakening to the realization that the biblical Israelites were Black, and these are all beautiful, right? But usually when people are, when we talk about the awakening, other people classify it as being led astray. Like people will tell you, because you left
Mm.
the church, you are lost. You are no, because you are no
Oh.
longer believing the same church narrative that you are an antichrist, you are lost, and what's not. So what's yours? How would you, how can you, what can you share on that note?
I think when I look at the awakening,
Mhm.
in my view,
Mhm.
especially just as a Bantu, is
Yes.
understanding. Yes, you'll see a different view of things, but
Mhm.
essentially, because there's all types of awakening. There are people who say it's your third eye opening, your conscious levels, and
Right.
etc. And all these things that people will come up, and but I believe whatever awakening you get should
Mhm.
should lead you to something, should lead you to an action that
Mhm.
uh so my journey was that yes, I could see the system that we are in
Right. Right.
does not add up, does not make sense. And of course, because of the long-standing narrative that we've had from church, religion, education, it
Mhm.
becomes very difficult to have people see your perspective. First of all, you'll be branded nuts. I remember when I started talking about this in 2018, 2017.
Mhm.
One of my friends, we used to be in campus together, was like, "Hey, I think COVID has hit you so much. You need to get out of the house."
Oh man.
You
uh,
know, and all sorts of people would tell you, it can't be true. All these people have learned all these things over time. How can you see this now? So
mm,
there's that personal journey to tell our people, Bantus and Africans, we need to relook and revisit this narrative because I think we've been miseducated and
yes. And
misdirected.
and just
Yes.
to that question, what some people believe they're focusing, there's a bunch of people out there that believe they're focusing on identity and ancestry, or I guess the location of the land, that those
Yeah.
stuff can distract us from the Most High. Has
Mhm.
your research for truth drawn you closer to the Most High? And if so, how? Because
Oh
people
yeah.
say,
I mean,
Mhm.
I think where the people miss out is this whole awakening, in my view, let me
Mhm.
say in my view,
Mhm.
goes back to Abraham and goes
Yeah.
back to Genesis. So the awakening should lead you to the kingdom that was lost, dominion.
Mhm.
So you can awaken and all have these all other eyes, but you're not having dominion, you're not getting back the kingdom.
Correct.
So the kingdom will lead you to read scripture, because this word, in as much as it's been twisted, is really the word that will guide you. It's the foundational principles that guide you. So people think that when you awaken, you leave God. Actually, I think it's the opposite. You
Mm.
actually get closer to God,
Right, right,
because now
right.
God directs you and opens more stuff for
Mhm.
you as you now seek, because
I agree.
seeking is not, you're actually diving deep into the word and understanding what Moses used to say, the ways of God. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when people say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this is ancestry. Literally,
Yes.
when the Bible gives us the genealogy of Jesus, that's ancestry. Ancestry is literally the
Yeah.
reason, the very foundation of Jesus would never be Jesus, right? Without his ancestry.
Yes.
With the Bible preserve
Yes.
a bloodline from David to be able to birth Jesus. So to
Yes.
say that ancestry is a waste of time, or that geography is bad, when the Israelites, why didn't, if geography is so bad, why didn't the Mosai give the Israelites the land of Egypt? Why didn't he give us some place in Europe? Like, why did he say, you gotta go back to that land, right? The land that I gave to your
Yes.
ancestor Shem, to I promised your ancestor Abraham, you gotta go back
Yes.
there. So to me, it's like the awakening, actually, like to your point, all of those points is what brings together, what brings the full awakening. Like, as you say, a kingdom mindset,
Yes.
which I like that. Miles Monroe talks a lot about kingdom mind
Yes.
people. Like,
Yes.
the religion, that's what differentiates between a religious mindset and a kingdom minded person.
You know.
A kingdom
Yes.
minded person is a full circle. You don't
Yes.
want to be awakened in one little corner and stuck there. No, you want to fully know your 360, what's going on in every corner, so you can be able to have full control and be able to be really, really, really fully
Mhm.
free, fully awakened, because the Bible said the truth shall set us free. Should we decide which part of the truth we're going to seek, or is it a full truth? Or is it a part truth, or is it full truth that will set
Yeah.
us free? So that's very
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much for sharing your point on that.
Mhm.
One of the question I've been meaning to ask, what caused you to question the traditional understanding? I know you share with me that you went somewhere with your parent and something happened, right? Something, you saw
Yes.
something that you never could unseen, right? But
Yes.
I would like to know what caused you to start questioning traditional understanding of biblical geography, and what led you to investigate even East Africa as being this, one, whether it's Sub-Saharan Africa as being the land of the Exodus?
I started seeing patterns. I think
Mhm.
pattern recognition in
Good.
whatever I was reading and our culture makes
Mhm.
sense. So you kind of see the patterns
Mhm.
and you start questioning yourself, like, why is this thing like it's all coincidence? How come Jeremiah 18 talks about the same things I see my people do, taking the pot, doing this
Mhm.
thing? Or why is the name Levi similar to our tribal name, right?
Mhm.
Or why do we have some coincidences in the cultural behavior, whether it's circumcision, whether it's cutting of the lamb's tail, blessings, and all these trees we use, walking sticks. So I started looking at those patterns, and after a while, it started like, wait, there's a pattern here. Why can
Mhm.
we pay attention to this?
I see.
And of course, I was like, wait, this can it be real that we have been played?
Right, right,
The
right.
question, like you see, think twice, wait, am I seeing what I'm seeing? And
Because
is it making sense?
Because if you think
And of
about it,
course,
yeah, yeah, that's
mhm,
very true. Because when you think about it, like the concept of circumcision, as you mentioned, that's literally is
yes,
the foundation of the identity of the Israelites in the Bible. The
yes,
circumcision was a major factor, right? Identify them as a separate people, as a set apart people. You know, it
yes,
was literally a commandment, almost like a requirement for
yes,
male children. And then when you come to Africa, this is actually okay, one of my research actually led me to finding that Bantu people are actually the only people that have been preserving circumcision for generations. All the other nations, even Europeans, don't practice circumcision. They only started doing
yeah,
it
they don't.
because of science,
Yes,
because of modern science.
yes,
They did not practice this in history, and most of them still don't to this very age. You know, so
yeah,
that's so when you I agree. So when you start to when you come into the culture, it's when you come into the culture, the language, the tradition, the location, the geography, the truth is in there. And I think we've all had people say, "Oh yeah, Mount Kenya and Mount Zion." We've had stories about, oh,
yes,
our tribe, our parents saying, like I remember one of my ancestors, one of my grandparents used to say, oh, we are the people of God, or we are the
mhm,
Israelite, or stuff like that. And it didn't click because it was almost like
yes.
just words that didn't make sense. Like you say, like it didn't click then and then until the time when it just when one point clicks, all the rest of the point just like fall in place. Like, man,
Yeah, yeah,
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah. So what in your discovery, right, in your research,
Mhm.
what
Yes.
discovery surprised you the most and convinced you that you were on the right track in terms of your research?
Uh, Even before I go to the geography, it's first of all it's your culture.
Hmm.
The culture, you see the culture and you're like, how come we do this? How
Hmm.
come these people are doing this? How come I've seen people eat those, insects like
Hmm.
grasshoppers?
Hmm.
How come these people grow something? So it's a question that you kind of see it often,
Yes.
but at the same time, I think understanding in Genesis, there is something that we totally missed. Then I saw it. Just one day I saw it and I couldn't unsee it because I understood that God doesn't work, God works in systems.
Mm.
God works in systems. The
Okay.
entire setup is a system. So he
Right.
doesn't like make man and then he goes makes the garden after. You know,
Hmm.
there's a system, there's a plan, there's an order of things. So
Right.
when I started seeing that, I knew this must make sense. If God is true, then things must be logical and orderly, and he must leave receipts,
I
what
see.
I call receipts.
I see.
So we must have receipts because people will tell you, you are the Israelite. Then, okay, yeah, I can see some similarities in culture. But where do you get the receipts?
Right. Right. Right.
Where
Right.
do you get the receipts?
Hmm.
The receipts must be evidence of something.
Right.
So I started doing the homework on the evidences of the land because there are things you can change, but there are things you can't change. You can't change a mountain, you can't change a river,
Yeah. You might
right?
change the name, but you won't change.
Yes, but you can't
Yeah.
change the yeah,
Yeah.
you can't change cardinal points like east. The sun rises from the east. You'll never change the east.
Right.
You
Right.
can change the names of where you
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
but there
And
are things you can't change. So
that's very.
if you follow these receipts that are in the Bible, because there are people who don't believe anything outside the 66 books.
Right.
And
Right.
so
Hmm.
if you start looking at these receipts, you start seeing like breadcrumbs.
I see.
You start seeing a whole new like pathway.
I agree.
And you just think logically, who wakes up and says, we are going for a trip, and they have not packed, they don't know where you're gonna buy food, where you're gonna stop, everything.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
this is an all-knowing God. Then he
I agree.
decides to pack
And
millions of people from Egypt, and then where are they gonna stop for water,
Right,
have pasture for the
right,
animals?
right. Why
Yeah,
is it
so it
called land
must
of?
make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
So
there's
for
patterns to
me,
it.
it had to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things that are logical, because you're dealing with an intellectual society.
Right.
The people, whether it's 5-year-olds or in fact 5-year to 10-year-olds will give you a master class because they will teach you things you don't.
Yeah. So to your point is when you look at the what's out there, like what people have been told to believe, and then the reality that's right in their face, it almost doesn't really align. Like when they say Israel is over there, and look at the size of Israel, look at the geography,
Yes.
the weather of Israel, look at the
Yes.
agricultural history of Israel, look at there's nothing to look at the mineral resources of Israel. And then when you look at the opposite, right, of where we are, I remember in history they told us that Kenya was the cradle of mankind, right? Of like where
Mankind.
most
Yes.
ancient man was evolved from or migrated from. To me, that's Adam right there, right? Like if it's basic knowledge, science is agreeing with the Bible, and that's what I would say in most cases. And so, if the first man came from East Africa, which is I would say Kenya or whatever people decide, then that's a strong evidence that's a receipt, right? To prove that
Mhm.
that the geography of that because the Book of Jubilee again provide information to say that particular very location, right, is where Adam is where what is where that Shem what that Noah gave when he was partitioning the land of to his descendants. He
Yes.
gave Shem the land that was the land of the Garden of Eden. So if Adam and Eve
Yes.
were in Eden and Shem and Noah gave Shem the land of Eden, then where is Eden? Where science claim that the oldest man was discovered. So it's
Yes.
supposed to make sense, but until you have the receipts, until you can be able to think outside the box and bring these points to like to the table, like, whoa, wait, these points they're all in our faces. They've called us primitive. Primitive is not a name. If you understand what the word primitive means, it means premier,
Yeah.
it means first. It means the
Yes.
original, the Adam.
Yes.
So but I'm glad you were able to bring that to that.
But
Yeah.
I'd throw in something there just to add on what you said.
Yes.
When you look at Genesis 13:1,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, Genesis 13:1,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Genesis 13:1 for me made a lot of sense in the sense
Right.
because it tells you they went south.
Mm-hmm.
South is a cardinal point.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham went up out of Egypt south. You can't go south east.
Right.
East is east. West is west. North
Mm-hmm.
is north. So south is south.
Right.
So those are cardinal points. So you can't say now we are going east, but the verse says they went south.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even if some
so
translation would
some of
say,
those things
mhm.
are like when it now comes to like let's not even debate all this. So do we know the four directions? East, west. Even if we don't know, we know at least the sun rises from the east. East does not change, neither the west,
Yeah, because sunrise,
right? So
sunset. Yeah.
sunrise, sunset. So
Yeah.
if we know, if it says they went south, then they went south.
Right.
So it can't be east.
Mhm.
So you can't go Middle East, but it's south. How?
But even though some
Mm.
people might try to argue with you that some Bible verses does not say south, it says up. But then when you look, if you study geography, right, this is
Yes.
another receipt. If you study
Yes.
geography, you just look it up. The altitude of Central Africa, Southern Africa, compared to the Middle East and Europe. This land up even Egypt. This is
Yes.
bottom peak. This is very low
Yes.
compared to the Central and Southern Africa. So if the
Yes.
Bible is saying they went up, and actually modern Israel is a lower altitude than Egypt. So if they went up into Egypt, into the land of Canaan, the land of Canaan cannot be in a lower altitude. It has to be higher. And so it only makes sense that there's no any other land that's higher than Egypt except sub-Saharan Africa. So clearly they migrated this, towards where you and I are, so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah, powerful.
And also, most people don't have knowledge of geography,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that, or whether it's history and geography. But
Right.
when you go to the basic description of Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
Egypt was divided into two. Even
Mm-hmm.
before you start going into Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt, because that came as a later description.
Mm-hmm.
But the name Egypt described on those stones and artifacts in Egypt
Mm-hmm.
was divided into what they call Sej and B, Nisbiti.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the Sej is the reeds section, which is Upper Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and then BT, which is B,
Mm-hmm.
is on the bottom section.
Right.
So because people don't have a foundation of geography,
Mm-hmm.
when it says you go up, you have to look at what is the defining thing of up to Egypt. The
Mm-hmm.
Nile
Right.
flows downwards. The
Mm-hmm.
river doesn't flow, it comes from somewhere and it flows.
Mm-hmm.
So the river, as it flows, the fish swim upstream, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you understand the flow of the Nile. The Egypt River, which is the Nile, is the life source of Egypt.
And
So
that's what you call the Nile compass. Can you tell us more about it? Let's just elaborate more on that Nile compass you talk about.
uh, you see, now you have to look at the source of the Nile,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the Nile comes from up there, from an upper region, which is the East African, like the Equator region,
Right.
goes all the way to the Mediterranean,
Perfect.
because East
Mm-hmm.
Africa is higher in elevation than Egypt. That's why
Mm-hmm.
the dam in Ethiopia is where it is,
Yes,
because Egypt is on lower ground.
I see.
So in Egypt, they used to say something. They used to have an event. They would actually, it's coming up in August, July, August, where
Okay.
they would say the term came from serious event. This is
Okay.
a serious matter.
Okay.
A serious matter is the phenomenon in Egypt where it would be the flooding of when the Nile flows and makes, now the Nile flows, it waters all the Egyptian land,
Mm.
because the Sirius star is coincides with the event when the rains fall on the equator, and the rain now flood the
It,
Egyptian territories.
I
So
see.
this is what they would call a serious event,
In the
serious
whole of
thing.
Egypt. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, and that's very very interesting because actually when you look at the ancient maps, like not even ancient, modern Egypt, when we started in school, well, because you and I studied in Africa
yes,
continent, when they taught us about you notice when they said Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt was actually lower on the modern map. Lower
yes,
Egypt was
yes,
closer to Europe, and Upper Egypt was closer to Kenya. And then even
yes,
even even the other one was I think was it Nubia? Was it? They would say
yes, Nubia.
Upper Nubia and Lower Nubia. The lowest part of Nubia was closer to Europe, and the highest the highest part of Nubia, which we call Upper Nubia,
Yes,
was
it can.
closer to Kenya.
Yes,
So it
yes,
makes sense. The Nile, the river doesn't, a river does not flow up. It does not flow up into the mountain. A river
yes,
flows down from a mountain.
yes,
So that will
yes.
make Central Africa literally a higher ground, so that the
Mhm.
Nile River makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Which
And
proves
you
your
see,
point about
because
the up, yeah, the Israelite going up theory.
and because you see the people, when we are being taught about this, like geography, or by the time you come to learn about geography and the flow of the Nile,
Hmm.
you've already been indoctrinated with a lot of religious whitewashing, so to say.
I agree.
And so already in your mind, it starts seeing what they wanted you to see, whether it's curricular education. So you don't have the time to think twice, you know.
Hmm.
And now when you grow and you start seeing the culture and
Hmm.
adding all these other things, is when now you can be able to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, this math doesn't math. The river
Right.
doesn't flow like that. So
Mhm.
how come there's Upper Egypt and God repeats it more than 5 times. I brought you up out of Egypt, not down out
Down.
of Egypt,
Yes, yes, that's the
right?
word. And so why
Yes.
why do you believe this detail has been overlooked, almost misunderstood for so long?
Uh, I think it's because we haven't been taught how to pay attention. Let
Okay.
me give you how it plays. Right? So let's say if I ask you, like, repeat the word silk 5 times
Mm-hmm.
and you say it out loud.
Yeah.
So if you say silk, 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 silk,
Yeah,
silk,
yeah,
silk,
yeah, yeah.
then I ask you, what does a cow drink? Automatically you'll think milk.
Mm-hmm.
But a
Yes.
cow drinks water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have been conditioned over time not to see the details. So when we start looking at the details is when we realize, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. A good
Mm-hmm.
example is Exodus 17, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
In Exodus 17, verse 5, this happens when Moses is at the rock of Horeb, and God tells him specifically, take the rod that you smote the river with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in other versions, it says, take the rod that you smote the Nile with. Now,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
So most people will tend to think, yeah, that was the event when the Nile was turned into blood and the plagues.
Yes.
But
Some
you go
story.
look at the plagues. Yes, you go
Yeah.
look at the plagues. It
Mm-hmm.
was Aaron who smote the Nile to blood. It wasn't Moses.
Mm-hmm.
So what is God talking about which river? Because
Mm-hmm.
if Moses is not the one who struck the first 3 plagues in Egypt, it was Aaron and Aaron's rod, then God is telling him, hey, look, take that river you did the thing of splitting the
Right,
sea of
right.
reeds
So
and
speaking of
use that.
speaking of the word you're saying, sea of reeds, right? Which a lot of
Yes.
people don't. That word alone is a revelation. You know, most people would
Yes.
say Red Sea instead of what you're calling sea of reeds. So how does the
Yes.
sea of reeds, as you call it, differ from the traditional
Yes.
Red Sea understanding, and why does that distinction matter at all?
I think let me give you an example so that you can, let's say you want to get a car, right? Or
Hmm.
you want to buy a house.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
do you start with? So
Okay,
you must have some features, some things that you want for the house, right?
that's true.
So let's say you want a 4 bedroom with
Hmm.
its own compound, maybe close to a school or a hospital or something like that, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then, so you have to have a criteria,
Hmm.
right? So you have to know what you're looking for. You can't say you're in the market for a house. A guy will ask you, so what house are you looking for?
Yeah, what
Is it
price?
a bungalow? Is it an apartment?
Yeah, what price
So
range? Yeah,
so
stuff
the
like that.
first things we should always ask ourselves is, okay, if we want to buy a house, we must start with a criteria.
That's
So
true.
what is the criteria for you first, even before you get to the sea of reeds? What
Hmm.
is the criteria that we should be looking at? First,
Hmm.
it's the direction.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
it's south, what are we doing in the east?
Right, right. So yeah, okay.
If it says a river, what are we doing with an ocean?
hmm That's right. So to your point that if it says if the Bible says they went up, which means really south, then that
Yes,
means we have to look for things for a river that's within that, a sea of reeds,
yes,
because the word sea as well sometimes is the confusion. How do you
yes.
how do you make peace with the fact that some people will argue with you that sea and a river are two different things? What would you tell them? That it's that a
Yes,
Nile cannot be a
they
sea because the Bible
yeah.
says sea of reeds.
But the challenge is we don't read the root words of meaning, right?
Mm,
We don't understand the root words, the definitions. So the definition of terms helps you communicate better. I'll give you an example. If you go to the States and I say to someone, you're my dog, man, you're my dog, right? That means like you're my friend. But come
right.
to Kenya, you say, we ni umbwa wangu. It is totally different.
You get in trouble.
It's an insult,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's the same term. It's dog, but here you say umbwa, it's a different connotation. It's a
Big
different
time.
meaning,
Mm.
right? So you can't use that unless you understand this definition of terms. So things like Sea of Reeds, right? When they say Red Sea, you have to look at the terms they use because reeds don't grow in salty waters.
Right.
They grow in fresh waters, right?
I see.
So when you look at reeds, think of them like water pans because you see them in big water bodies, swampy areas.
Mm-hmm.
They just like look like they are floating mats.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they say a sea of reeds. So when they are floating
Mm-hmm.
and you see them, the way you have these water fans, I think they're what called water lilies. They
Mm-hmm.
look like they are floating, or like the we have now the Lake Victoria or seaweed. They said Lake Victoria weed, which is covering the water. It's like a floating mat,
I see.
right? So this then is preceded with the wind blowing the mat
Mm.
and making it a dry ground. So you see, it didn't say the reeds were not blown. It tells you specifically this is a sea of reeds. So we don't have people paying
Sea of
attention to that
reeds.
criteria.
Oh wow, I see.
Yes,
So it hasn't.
yes.
It's less about a sea and more about just a whole sea of
So
reeds.
yeah,
Okay.
take let's say take some plastic things, right? And then you put them in a bucket, right? And they float, right? You know, like the
Mm-hmm.
way when you buy like a TV or radio, there's this polyform which is white in color, and then you kind of it makes noise, the thing that protects the TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Polystyrene. So if you take it and put it in water, it will float,
Mm.
right? So
Yes.
what will you call that? It will be a floating sea of plastic things, right? So it's the same way you should, people haven't understood it. So these reeds, in as much as they are reeds, they can't grow in salty water.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start talking about Red Sea, there are two things we've done wrong. One, we've gone east. It says south. So what are we doing in the east?
Oh, we're doing in the
So
north.
if you told me it's in the south, and we have an ocean there in the south, I would start looking at it. But
Yeah.
then again, Exodus 17 tells you it's a river. So you should be looking south on
Into
a river.
yes. And here in
And
the south
it
have
reads,
and most of the
right?
longest, largest rivers in the world are found
Yes,
in this southern Africa. That's why it's even called the Great Lakes region because it's got
exactly.
all the water, the fresh waters in the world are found here.
Yes.
Both fresh and salty too. But so to your
Mhm.
point, we kind of you kind of in agreement that you're saying that the Sea of Reeds, which is the Nile, is the one that has reeds, so it makes that being the river that they cross. But then I know in your book you talk about um, uh, the Sud wetlands, like and so why do you believe
Yes.
that it is? But that because the Nile River is a very long river and it's divided. It's even when it gets to about around Ethiopia, Sudan, it divided into two rivers.
Yes.
There's a white and red
Yes.
and blue Nile. And so to
Yes.
why do you how do you came up with a conclusion that this particular point of the Sud wetland is exactly where in South Sudan is exactly where the Israelites crossed and not any other location? Because somebody would claim
One,
that it was closer to Egypt
yes.
than it is to, I guess, to Kenya.
Yes. So we go back to the original foundation. First,
Mm-hmm.
Egypt was divided into two, lower and upper,
And upper, yes.
right? So we are dealing with the upper side.
Mm-hmm.
The upper side was called sedge, which means like sedge means reeds.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when you follow through, when we read the text and it says they came to Balziphon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Balziphon, and they were trapped between the land and the sea, right? In
Mm-hmm.
order for them to get the miracle of crossing, they could not be able to cross. So it had to be like a miracle for them to cross. So again, you look at history in Egypt. Have they tried to penetrate this region before? Yes. Is there cultural evidence of this place and naming? Yes. Do they have history of such naming in the region, locally, culturally? Yes. Do they have scientific archaeological excavation they've done in these areas? Yes. Is it south? Yes. So all these things will add. Even the name of the wind, they still call it that way. They still have a
Mm.
name for the wind that blows from the east,
Right.
because the east must blow. The wind didn't come from the west; it came from the east,
So what
because
did
they were camped
Mhm.
on the west. So
Interesting.
it must align.
So
And
do you have any idea what the ancient Egyptians called the Nile? Because I know the word Nile as well is modern.
yeah, the Nile is recent, but the people of South Sudan, the Dinka and the Nua,
Mm-hmm.
have their cultural stories, and they have these stories of someone similar like Moses.
Mm.
And you find the
Yeah,
same
about that.
reference in Elijah. Is it Elijah or one of the books? Elijah 11:15, I think so,
Mm-hmm.
where it
That's
describes the same thing.
that's true.
And then out
Mm-hmm.
of the Bible, you find it even in the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
where it
Interesting.
talks about the same thing.
Yeah, because even the extra biblical text talks about Moses going into, I think the book of Jasher talks about Moses being a king in Egypt for 40 years. I mean, no, not
Yes.
in Egypt, sorry,
In
in land of
uh
Cush, which we
yes.
believe, I strongly believe the land of Cush is Ethiopia, Sudan, like that region. But then I
Yes.
remember actually, to your point, I remember when I was in Kenya, I remember working at some
Mm.
point with South Sudanese. I think it was from
Yes.
Dinka or something. I think it might be a Dinka
Yes.
brother. And he told me that they believe in Sudan, they have this thing where they're looking for the stick of Moses. They believe that Moses left power in Sudan. You know, like when he was
Yes.
there, that he left a stick there, and they're looking
Yes.
for it. So whoever get that stick get the power of Moses. And I was like,
Yes.
wow. So there's oral history that proves
Yes.
the biblical narrative to be actually true. I will almost say to your point that African oral history actually gives more life to the
Support.
Bible. It makes it more
Yes.
relevant than the European history that we've been bamboozled with. That the usual that Jesus is white and that they went over there and that's more tiny land. It actually makes more sense. There's more evidence to actually make the Bible more authentic in African
Yeah.
culture. Would you say?
Yeah. And it must make sense. Remember, these guys had like they had more than 100,000 cows.
Hmm.
So where did these cows get water to drink? They don't, cows don't drink salty water.
Right,
They don't
right.
drink ocean water. So
No.
these things must make sense. And just to add on what you said, they
Mm.
have maps that show, and even in the book I put these maps that
Mhm.
show where the area where the exile of
Mhm.
the Jews went. It's even written, fugitives of Jews region.
Mm.
And they've documented this from 1600. It's
Do you
not
know
our
do you know the
maps.
name of this map? Sorry.
Yeah. I have the map here. It's
Okay.
can give you one of the maps,
Okay, please,
because
yeah. Because people would like to
when
know.
they say this, so
Hmm.
one of the maps is by Chatelain Henry. It's
Hmm.
1719.
Hmm.
It's Carte Particular d'Egypte.
Okay.
It's a
Interesting.
1719 map. So in there you see fugitives of the Jews. You see Midian. You do see Desert of Seth.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
We didn't
Yeah.
make these maps. It's them who made it,
They the one that made
right?
the maps. Yeah, there's I can agree with
Yeah.
there's a lot of maps that even shows Agag that shows all of this biblical name in Central Southern Africa, like in these regions. And so you have a very powerful point. Thanks for sharing the map with us. But is there
Mhm.
something you wanted to add to this point before we go on? Because I've
Uh,
cut you off when you were speaking.
uh, I think I think
Yeah.
we also have to look at the criteria, because if we don't start with like what should we be looking at?
Mm-hmm.
You see, anybody will tell you you want a house. It's 5 bedrooms. Someone will say 10 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 bedrooms, but you have to have something to work with.
That's
So
true.
there are those guiding principles that we must be in agreement with.
Yes.
Otherwise, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense for our people. You have to have those as like the basics. Those are
Mm-hmm.
the foundations guiding
Yes.
us. So you won't say, if you are going to this place, you must have water.
Mm-hmm.
It must make sense. They need the firewood,
Yes.
right?
Where would they get
So
that? Yeah.
the
They need
forest,
this
or
means
so you say
forest.
it was the
Yeah.
forest disappeared,
Yeah.
but it's in the east,
When you talk
right?
about milk and
It's not a
honey,
river.
where
Yes,
do you get, how do you get milk? How do you get honey?
yes. Three, there is
Mm-hmm.
no archaeological
Mm-hmm.
evidence, zero archaeological evidence of these people camping in all that land. If you go camping today, you will leave some things, you'll break some pots if you are them, you still have firewood, you still cook. So all these people never camped at all, zero. They didn't even find one or two or three things.
Wow. So to
You
your
see,
point,
so
people who claim
you
that,
must support
mhm,
it with the receipts and
receive,
scientific backing,
yes.
not just to say,
Otherwise,
yes,
mhm.
I could say it is in West Africa.
Right, right. Anybody could claim anywhere. It's kind of like so
Yeah, you can claim it's Russia.
these false claims are actually, to your point, actually what has led most people to even reject the Bible because they are looking
Yes,
at Jesus in a wrong place. They are looking at the Israelites in a wrong place. They are looking at the event, the biblical events in a wrong location. So people will say, well,
yes,
there's no Moses, there's no tomb of Moses because they are looking at the wrong place. Again, they are looking at the wrong people, wrong location. So to your point, location is very important where archaeology is involved. Yes, those people in the Middle East have highest form of like highest research, right? Highest archaeology in
yes,
done in those regions. But none of those archaeologists have actually proved anything. Yes, they proved the people that lived in the land and all that stuff, but it hasn't provided any authentic anything that supports the Bible really significantly. But then when you look at the history, like
yes.
when you talk about the Bantu culture, the linguistics, you talk about the migration, the oral narratives, how do you think this will be able to help bring the archaeology home where it's supposed to be done so that our people can really find the truth, the actual truth?
One, I think we have to look at it from this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When the hunter writes the story for the lion,
Mm-hmm. Right.
yeah, when the hunter writes the story for the lion, he'll always be victorious.
That's true.
Now, when you look at all these books that have been written and things, it's someone who's telling a story outside. It's
Mm-hmm.
an outsider telling the story. One of the things we have to be proud of as Africans is we have to be willing and
Mm-hmm.
ready to produce material
Mm-hmm.
that when you are producing this material,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to produce something that will impact these people in a positive way. Don't just sell for the sake of selling, because
Mm-hmm.
most people are doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
right.
two, they never gave us what do you call it? Sorry, 1 second.
I
They
can
never gave us
yeah.
an opportunity to write our stories. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at all the people who are producing all these publications, they're not our people.
Right, 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 right. Mm-hmm.
So how can it be that someone else is going to tell your story better than you?
Right, 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 right. So it lacks an
So
authentic touch to it.
yes, because
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a culture that
Mm-hmm.
can mimic the culture.
You can
So you're
relate.
not going to tell us that now you know better than us. But if you go publish it, and this is one of the things that strategically they have
Mm-hmm.
done, is you put it in a system where it is in a system. So if I tell you, for you to be recognized, you must be able to publish, you must be a professor, you must be studying XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already putting you in a filter. So for you to
Yes.
have your book, you must
Yes.
publish it by a known publisher.
Yes.
That publisher will take rights from you. They will
Mm-hmm.
want a certain narrative. All
Mm-hmm.
these educational institutions have been curtailed to send a certain narrative.
That's true.
But tell me,
Yeah.
which African do you know has published about Sinai? How many documents, how many movies, how many videos have you seen about Sinai by Africans?
There's no effort. And so to that point, to that question, which is a very, very powerful question, I hear your book is emphasized on Mount Sinai, right? That's a
Yes,
foundational almost point.
yes,
And Mount Sinai was very significant to the biblical Exodus when our ancestors left Egypt.
yes,
Sinai is where
yes.
they received the 12 the 12 commandments.
Yeah,
Sinai
10. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
is where they received
Yes,
that, like an encounter, the first biggest encounter with the Most High, right? After leaving the
yes,
land of Egypt, being the people,
yes,
to general group of people. And
yes,
so Sinai is important. I think to your point, most people don't really talk about Sinai. We talk about Zion because Zion is in the land and Zion is praised, spoken about in the end time and what Zion represents, and that's beautiful, right? But Mount Sinai would tell us exactly where the migration went, which is very powerful in that way because Sinai was a very important point. So if we find the
yes.
true location of Sinai, then we know where the Israelites really, really went. There's no question
Yeah,
about anything else. So I think that's
yes.
that's a groundbreaking point that you talk about. So, but I would like you to, why do you share a bit about what you think about Sinai, but also share with us where do you think Sinai is and provide some points that supports this argument.
One, I think we have to understand
Mm-hmm.
that Sinai, in terms of context,
Mm-hmm.
you can't talk about Sinai or Sinai before you talk about Genesis. You can't talk about Exodus before you understand Genesis. Genesis is what leads to Sinai because
Mm-hmm.
Genesis tells you Adam were kicked out and
Yeah.
then it grew. So
Mm-hmm.
why would God tell Moses, go
Mm-hmm.
bring these people back here so that they can worship me or they can serve me in this place, in this mountain?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the relevance? Why would they build the Ark of the Covenant using acacia wood? Why would Jesus come again and be crowned in a crown of thorns? You see the sign, the scene, the thorns that grew, because essentially you are talking about a relation between the garden and
Mm-hmm.
them being excluded, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at first Adam, then understand Sinai, because
Okay.
Sinai is the same concept that Adam was being given. Now, Adam is given laws about the land,
Mm-hmm.
about dominion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Adam, a king, is the only one who gives you authority or dominion.
Mm.
That's different.
Yes.
So, you cannot get authority or dominion from these other systems. So, when we have like democratic systems, the power is given by the people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
In a kingdom, it is the king who gives the power.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why we say, lion is the king of the jungle, right?
But-
Lion is the king. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, but he's the king of the jungle. So
Right.
the king gives authority, dominion on Adam. So when Adam loses the dominion, how does he lose it? He loses it because he breaks the laws that he
Yeah.
was given.
Yes.
So
Together.
now
Yeah.
Exodus is bringing back these people to give them the laws so that they can govern
Together.
and continue within a kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't listen, we have Yesu coming in the future, bringing the laws, bringing the word in himself as a living flesh. So you
Right.
can see the correlation between Adam the Exodus, and
Mhm.
Yesu,
Mhm.
because he's trying to bring back the system that was there before in the garden. So
So to your
this
point,
system was being given.
people saying Yesu came to abolish the law, you do not agree with that. See, which
No,
is
it
he's a
can't be,
continuity of
because he
what,
says,
yeah, he's a continuity
yeah,
of
because Jesus
that
says in
happening.
John 4, he says, whoever loves me keeps the commandments.
That's true.
Would you like to walk in the appointed times of the Most High? Download the Bantu Biblical Calendar app, free at www.bantu.biblicalcalendar.com.
So when you look at Exodus, it's based on Genesis, right? So it is the laws that were being given. So Exodus, the Mount Sinai, is like what you call it, a landmark. So let's say an example. If I'm sending you, I'm sending you somewhere, or you've bought something and I'm a guy delivering to you. What do you need? You need to send me the location, correct? So if you're sending me the location, I don't need to go on Acacia or get 40 pastors to fast for me. I just need directions, right? I need a pin, right? So if you tell me, stop when you get to JKI Nairobi, go east, and then you'll find a highway. You will see a big mountain mall. This is where you stop at. So once you have a sense of a landmark, you can use that landmark to get to the other places, because all of Scripture defines these other places. Like Kadesh is 11 days journey from Sinai, right? Kadesh was near the Jordan, right?
Okay.
The Dead Sea is close to the Jordan.
Okay.
You see, the Moabites were east of the Jordan,
Yeah.
right? So all this, now we can tell where these other places are, because there's the nuggets of directions and places. So with Sinai, it's a landmark. That is the founding landmark that we can tell all these different locations and where the people are based. So an example, the wise men from the east,
Okay.
right? The wise men from the east brought frankincense and myrrh. So where do we grow frankincense and myrrh? You can't go get it from the west, because it's predominantly been growing from the east. It's from trees.
Okay.
It's within the Horn of East Africa, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia. This is the region, right? So you have to use one landmark to tell you. So let's say you even take this like mobile apps, you're taking a taxi and you need to put where you're going. You have to start somewhere, right? So you can't go to an airline and say, I want to go to South Africa. What is the first thing they'll ask you to book a ticket? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Where are you living from, right?
Yeah. Where you
So
headed?
if you're living, I want to go to South Africa, I want to book a ticket. So which airport are you leaving from for us to give you a ticket?
And where are you going?
You can
What's your
say,
destination? Yeah.
yes, your destination, and which airport are you leaving from?
Yes.
Which port are you exiting from? So if you know the port, and you will start with, I'm going to the promised land, right? But I need to leave from Egypt. This is where we are leaving from, right?
So,
There is a stopover in between. So I know I'll stop over in Sinai, right? So I think the Sinai is where people miss it now. Even if you find Sinai today, tomorrow, and you go there, because people will go there, the question is, what other supporting evidence do you have on the ground in the scriptures that support? Because anybody can say Sinai is anywhere, but there is evidence of Sinai in the Bible. It describes it as a
first of
volcanic
all,
mountain.
maybe share with us, where do you think Sinai is? Because people would really like to know, where do you think Sinai is, and then provide us with evidences that you think why Sinai is best where
It's in
I think it is.
I believe, and I've seen it's in East Africa. So the reason why, because you have to look at the different features described, like it's a volcanic mountain, or it has ABCD. Korah was swallowed up there, right? And people might argue, oh no, Sinai is Brandesberg Mountain, or it is in Namibia. I say, fine, okay, you have a point. Let's look at the description. So how many days journey did they take from Egypt? Right? The Bible gives you the timelines. They left on this date, they arrived on this date. So you can calculate the difference of time, the number of days.
Yeah.
So then two, they passed through a river. Where did they camp? If it's volcanic, where is Kadesh? Where is all these places? So you have to have a supporting evidence of those lists. If you don't have the scientific supporting and all the evidence in the Bible, people will ask you for the receipts. And then it will be so difficult to support the claim because you must also have scientific. And these things are a chain. You must come from Egypt to Sinai. Once you get to Sinai, it has its own list of criteria.
So yeah, that's so. From what you're sharing, it seems like obviously, I mean, from the biblical point of view, it seems like Sinai is actually closer to Egypt, as well. Like in terms of how many days did they leave from Egypt to Sinai before
Yeah.
arriving at
Yes.
Mount Sinai? It will tell you how close
Yes.
they were to there. But of course, the Bible talks about how they went different routes before getting, like they just kept going back and forth. And I
Yes.
think Sinai being whatever it is they decided to be, and I would really like you to narrow it down, not to say just East Africa, because East Africa is vast, because people want to know, and then maybe your book can provide more reasons why, like, but I think people would like to know where you think Sinai is particularly, and then from that point, people want to know exactly where you stand. You can't just say East Africa. You can just say, because then it doesn't really provide people with all the information they need. But the point I was going to say before saying that is that the Israelites went all the way, according to the Bible, when we read through the book of Exodus, they went all around different regions, but they went through the wilderness. Yes, some people might argue the wilderness was, it might be a forest. Some people might argue the wilderness is literally the Sahara Desert, which is the largest
Yes.
desert in the world. And so it makes sense that people would spend all those 40 years crossing it than crossing Egypt just into this tiny little location, like literally next door. Israel is next door to Egypt. So all those factors are very beautiful. And the point, there are people that argue that the Sinai is just around, just at the bottom of Egypt, just right there. Some people will argue that it's farther into Kenya. Some people will argue that it's Sudan, whatever. So I would, and obviously we know that Sinai was not part of the Promised Land. It was a region outside of the Promised Land because Moses could not get into the Promised Land. Moses was at Sinai, so Sinai would be farther away from the Promised Land. But I think you providing with all the research that you've done, we would like to know where where you base Sinai and provide us with the reasons
Okay.
why that's the best option for it.
Okay. So one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that's I'm gonna try and do is
Mm-hmm.
before you get to Sinai,
Okay.
there's other evidences that you must have.
Yes.
Forget about Sinai for a minute.
Okay. Okay.
Once you must understand the Sea of Reeds.
Okay.
So once you cross the Sea of Reeds, you go into where they camped, the places they got water. They camped along a body of water which also had reeds,
Yes.
where the first quail landed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
you must provide that along the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Before you get to Sinai, you must get to the rock of Horeb,
Yes.
because the rock of Horeb is not Mount Sinai. Rock of Horeb is where Moses struck the water and it came out. So
Mm-hmm.
you must have all these things that support that. Two, we must pay attention to the details because when it says Moses was at Sinai, then Moses was taken to the region of Nebo, and he was not allowed to cross the Jordan, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was which period? It wasn't the same period of when they were at when they had sent the spies.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the end of the 39-40 year period,
Right.
right?
When
So
when they be
before they get,
Mhm. Come
yes,
again? Can
because
you
when
correct
they
that?
sent the spies,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't getting
Yes.
to the land then.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was during the other time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it was when they were coming now to cross over during the 40-year period difference. Then you must support the evidence of these people lived in this wilderness for 40 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how did they get water? How did they get food for their animals?
Okay.
So where did they get the acacia wood to make the tabernacles? Why would Moses give them the the laws about the dietary laws, the animals not to eat and to check their hoofs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The type of hoof. So how are you going to tell these animals are in the land if you don't have these animals in the land? Because if the hoof print is on the ground, you need to have the animals in the land.
Right. Right. Right.
So yes, I will pinpoint, yes, Sinai, in my view, is in Tanzania.
Okay. Interesting.
Again, you asked to go back to the story of things like Jubilees.
Okay.
When Jubilees chapter 8, I think verse 19 tells you
Yes.
there are three locations which the Most High, so which locations? There's Mount Sinai, there's the Garden of
Garden
Eden,
of
and
Eden.
then there's Mount Zion.
Yeah. Yes.
But
I.
most people don't think about this, but the Garden of Eden was also a mountain,
Interesting.
right? So it's not just the way God has a template, He has a pattern to
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
you can't have this and then you just think there's a garden. The
Yeah.
garden was on the east. Again, east does not change.
Mm-hmm. So you say the Mount Sinai will be in Tanzania.
Yes.
What exact? Do you have an exact mountain that you think that has the whole this qualify for this? But also, uh, have you ever visited this mountain? I mean, what drew the conclusion to this particular location as being Mount Sinai?
So in the book, when I was writing this, this is one of the things that came up as
Okay.
a problem or as a challenge. So in the book, it's one of the chapters, what I call the Sinai criteria.
Okay.
The Sinai criteria. So
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to define a mountain is at Mount Sinai, you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a criteria. There are over 24 that I've put in the book,
Okay.
but essentially there are more than 50,
Okay.
upwards of 60. So you must fulfill this as a checklist. If it doesn't check it, it's out.
Okay. So what are these
If it doesn't
criteria?
check this,
And why do
yeah,
you think, what are these criteria and why do you think your particular location is, I mean, just share maybe like five of these criteria that are very the most strongest
yeah, sure.
that you think, and then why you think
Okay,
your particular location, which I think you would like, would be great if you could share with us this exact location.
yeah. So I put six key indicators,
Okay. All right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, I put six key indicators. One, you must be up out of Egypt.
Right. Sure.
So
Okay.
which means you're going south.
Yes.
You must pass through the Sea of Reeds,
Okay. Which is the Nile, I'm assuming. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
then you must have the wilderness
I see.
and where they would get this the sustainable water and food for the animals,
Okay.
right? Then you must have the mountain as described. It must be volcanic.
Okay.
Before you even get to the mountain, you must get the rock of Horeb.
Okay.
After the rock of Horeb, you must now get the other supporting, which is for me is Korah's sinkholes, where Korah was swallowed up, and it's not one hole. They're like
Right.
four or so.
Mm-hmm.
So this must be supported. Then there's other supporting. This is just the 6 key. So
Okay.
if it's not volcanic, if it's you don't have the Sea of Reeds, if
Okay.
it's not volcanic, you don't have the Sea of Reeds, it's not out of Egypt,
Okay.
it's not on the east, it
Okay.
can't be on the west, it can be on
East
the
of what?
Mediterranean,
East of
it
what?
can't be east of Egypt.
Okay, east of Egypt. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it must be up out of Egypt, which is in the south.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So
Mm-hmm.
these 6 key indicators are important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a problem with most people when you give them the name
Okay.
because they don't have the criteria. There are like 34 criterias. I
Okay.
mean, 24, I've just put in the book. There are over 50.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is people will start fighting. There are maps in this book.
Okay.
There are more than 6 maps. There are
Okay.
maps that go back to 1800. I didn't make the map. The colonizers and the West already identified this place where I arrived at.
Okay.
So it's not just me identifying the location in Tanzania.
Right.
There's existing maps which support my basis. Two, I visited the place a couple of times. And the most recent one was in February 2026, this year.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you also must have the Altar of Moses. I've not even put that in the top 6.
Okay.
Where the golden calf happened. What is the golden calf?
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all these things must be there on the ground. And there's more supporting infrastructure. Where Joshua fought with the Amalekites, the battle place. Jehovah Nissi, the what was put up. What is it? Where is it? You must provide all this supporting evidence.
Okay.
There must be archaeological evidence that they have found in that region for people to settle. They've dug up carbon dating, all these things must be ports. They have found all these things. So
Mm-hmm.
that must be supported.
Yes.
So yes, I can tell people where it is, but the danger of that is that people will not read. This is a problem we have.
And I
Then,
understand. But
yeah.
also I think that it's for like for people who are other researchers who are looking for information. Someone like me, I
Mhm.
would like to if you speak telling specifically where it is, I would definitely. I think at this point people should. I would encourage people to get your book so they can be able to get really even if you tell them the name of this location. I think it will be best that
Yes.
people can actually get the book so they can have the full experience of what you were sharing or why you decide this is the location. But also people like me
Yes.
who have been to Tanzania a lot of times, I would love to visit Tanzania again, just with a different, just with an open mind to see what you were talking about. So I would still
Yes.
kind of encourage for you to share the name, just for that, because that's the foundation really of your book, and I think it will be powerful people to just to give people something to whoa, oh man, I didn't expect that. Because one of the points that you realize is that there's a lot of narratives already. People are saying it's here, it's there, and to your point, that's very true. People are stuck in that argumentative, just like oh, it's here, it's there, and the European scholars have also made their own claims about where it is, and so there's all that argument. But I think you already defining the Sea of Reeds and defining the going up out of Egypt, those are really
Mhm.
bring that back into Africa. But even within that, even people that agree, because I agree with you on that, even people that agree on that narrative, there is also a conversation of is it in Sudan? Is it in Egypt? Is it in Kenya? Is it in Tanzania? Um, and then even the concept of what you talk about when you talk about the wilderness, you seems like you're talking about you're looking for water and for animals, and other people are looking for a desert. Like where to be able to explain the reason for the manna, because the Bible says that for the 40 years they were in the wilderness, they could not. The reason why manna was important is because clearly there was no food. there was no way they did not have the grassland, because if they did, then they wouldn't need manna. So it's a lot of factors that are very, very profound, that really does make sense to your point, that when you look through the four corners of anything, it makes you need to be able to view from from all angles to see, to find something authentic. But I think your argument is very important, because it brings people home to, this is where it's supposed to, this is where they went, so we are supposed to look down here. And then when you look
Mhm.
at for instance, people who argue that it's somewhere near Egypt, because there's maps that shows, I think, um, there was a map that showed mountain of Sin or something like that, and then like
Yes.
or Sina or Sena, and people will argue that
Yeah.
Sina and Sena, this is Sinai, and it's showing up
Yes.
somewhere in northern Sudan, in
Yes.
like closer to Egypt. There's people that
Yes.
would argue that Sinai has to be closer to Egypt, because when you look at, if you look at the biblical timeline of when they were into Sinai from Egypt, how long did they take to get to Sinai? Some people argue that it
Yes.
shouldn't be farther south into Kenya, into Tanzania, especially given that Tanzania is even farther, with Kenya farther down, farther up, sorry,
Mm.
from Kenya. So,
Yes.
but also when you look at the other evidence they provide, which was very powerful, when you say that the factors about the coming down, the second one about the east and west, which I think those are all powerful fact point. The other one you talk about the mountain, like the volcano, like a volcano mountains, and I think I would say almost argue. So that's another argument that people will come across. There's a lot of volcanic mountains in this region. There's Ethiopia has a volcanic mountains, like a
Yes.
really like it still work to this day. In Eastern Congo, there's volcanic mountains, which is still considered as east. Actually, the Nile does come in from Uganda. That's why we believe that the source of the Nile is in
Yes.
Uganda and goes
Mhm.
up from there. But then there's a lake that supplies the Nile that called Sim Lake. I think you know the lake. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
in East Africa still. Um, so there's people that would argue with you that if at all we're looking at the volcanoes in right there near Uganda in Eastern Congo, there's this volcano. I don't know if you've heard of the eruptions of the
Yes.
Nyiragongo and all this is the mountain that
Yes.
erupt every other day. And literally people this mountain, one of them in Nyiragongo, actually,
Yes.
they define it as the mountain of God. Nira Ongo, according to the tribe that lives under this mountain, they call it the mountain of God. That's what Nira Ongo means. Ongo in their language means God, and Nira means mountain. So I'm just curious, and it's I'm just curious
Mhm.
to like for you to like to hear more and about what you have to share. You have to share because I think this point is what your point and everybody's point is what we need to bring together, right? To have a to be able to come to a common ground.
Yes. So in the book, I talk about a summary table in terms of the
Mhm.
different candidates that people have put up
Yes.
previously as candidates that can qualify for Mount Sinai. For
Mhm.
example, there's Jabal Musa,
Yes,
there's
Jabal
Jabal
Mustafaa.
Alwaz,
Hmm.
there's Hakakom, which there's Jabal Mara,
Hmm.
etc. There's the one in Ethiopia,
Yes.
etc.
Hmm.
So once again, I go back to the six basic criterias that I said. Why do we need to look at just these six are just the top ones? Like we used to do
Yeah.
something called elimination method,
Yeah.
where you'd say, if it doesn't qualify for this, I'm not gonna even bother with the rest,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if any of these locations has a Horeb mountain, or a rock place where there's water features, then
Hmm.
it can qualify.
Good to know.
If it has the
Okay.
sinkholes are the size of like football fields.
Okay. Or even you sharing the actual name or actual
Mhm.
name of this mountain. There's you say so you believe since you say the mount this mountain is in Tanzania. Do you believe that? Are you saying that Tanzania is not part of the Promised Land? Are you saying that Mount Sinai was in the Promised Land? Are you saying it was in the Promised Land? Are you saying Tanzania because it is in Tanzania
Mm.
and it wasn't in a part of the the promised land of, territory, are you saying that Tanzania is outside of the promised land, which means Kenya will be too outside because it's right above Tanzania? Like, what's your argument around these narratives?
Yes. So in the book, I talk about a summary table in terms of the different candidates that people have put up
Yes.
previously as candidates that can qualify for Mount Sinai. For example, there's Jabal Musa,
Yes,
there's Jabal Al-Waz,
Mhm.
there's Hakakom, which there's Jabal Mara, etc. There's the one in Ethiopia,
Yes.
etc.
Mhm.
So once again, I go back to the 6 basic criterias that I said. Why do we need to look at these 6 are just the top ones. Like we used to do something called the elimination method, where you'd say, if it doesn't qualify for this, I'm not going to even bother with the rest.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if any of these locations has a Horeb mountain or a rock place where there's water features, then it can qualify. If it has the sinkholes, the sinkholes are the size of like football fields.
Or even you sharing the actual name or actual name of this mountain. There's, you say, so you believe, since you say this mountain is in Tanzania, do you believe that, are you saying that Tanzania is not part of the promised land? Are you saying that Mount Sinai was in the promised land? Are you saying it wasn't in the promised land? Are you saying Tanzania, because it is in Tanzania and it wasn't in a part of the promised land of, territory, are you saying that Tanzania is outside of the promised land, which means Kenya will be too outside because it's right above Tanzania? Like, what's your argument around these narratives?
Thank you for joining us. For more insightful content, like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. Stay tuned for more exciting explorations.
Get the book Sunset to Sunset, Our Bantu Calendar, and discover more about Bantu people's culture, languages, spirituality, and migration history as evidence to prove without a shadow of a doubt that Bantu people are the original biblical Israelites. Learn about the original timekeeping of the ancient calendar of Sabbaths, new moons, and feast days, as these factors unveil the true location of the Promised Land. Find the book on Amazon and on YouBuy for people in Africa.
Would you like to walk in the appointed times of the Most High? Download the Bantu Biblical Calendar app, free at www.bantu.biblicalisraelites.com.